You step outside your tent. No signal bars, no blue dot on a screen, just trees in every direction and a sky about to turn dark. Panic sets in fast, doesn't it? For most of human history, this wasn't an emergency. It was Tuesday. For roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors moved across continents, deserts, ice sheets, and open ocean without a single satellite, without a compass, without a paper map. And they almost never got lost. Not because the world was smaller, not because they stayed close to home. Some of them crossed thousands of miles of open water in boats with no metal, no engine, and no way to radio for help. So how did they do it? The answer starts with something your brain still has, buried under decades of turn-by-turn directions. Researcher John Huth, a physicist at Harvard, spent years studying how people once found their way without instruments. He calls it natural navigation. It's not one skill, it's dozens of small skills stacked together until they form something like a sixth sense. Start with the sky. Ancient humans didn't glance at stars for beauty. They read them like a clock and a compass fused into one. The North Star barely moves all night, so it became a fixed anchor point. Constellations rise and set in predictable places along the horizon, so a hunter heading out before dawn could check which stars were setting behind him and know, without thinking twice, which direction was home. Then there's the land itself. Wind bends trees a certain way over years. Moss doesn't randomly grow, it favors damp, shaded bark, often facing away from direct sun. Rivers almost always flow toward lower ground, and lower ground almost always leads somewhere useful, a valley, a coast, other people. None of this required writing anything down. It required paying attention every single day until the patterns became automatic. And it wasn't only visual, smell carried information too. Salt air meant the coast was near, long before it came into view. Certain plants only grew near water, so their scent alone could redirect an entire group. Sound mattered just as much. The distant rush of a river, the particular call of a bird that only nested near cliffs, these were data points, filed away the same way you'd remember a street name today. Researcher Lynn Kelly has spent years studying how oral cultures encoded enormous amounts of practical knowledge, including navigation routes, without writing anything down. Her work points to something remarkable. Many cultures turned their territory into a kind of story. Landmarks became characters, routes became songs, recited in order, so that walking the land and reciting the memory happened at exactly the same pace. In parts of Australia, Aboriginal peoples used what are often called songlines, oral maps that encoded travel routes across enormous stretches of desert, sometimes spanning hundreds of miles, passed down accurately for thousands of years. Miss a line in the song, and you'd miss a turn in the desert. Get the song right, and you'd never truly be lost, because the map lived inside you, not on a piece of paper you could drop. Now picture the open Pacific. No coastlines, no landmarks, just water in every direction for weeks. And yet Polynesian voyagers sailed thousands of miles between islands on purpose and arrived where they meant to. Anthropologist David Lewis spent years living with and learning from Pacific navigators before this knowledge nearly disappeared. What he documented sounds almost impossible. Navigators memorized the rising and setting points of over 100 stars. They read ocean swells with their bodies, feeling subtle shifts in wave direction through the hull of the canoe, sometimes lying down to sense it better. They watched the flight paths of certain seabirds at dusk, because those birds fly home to land every night, and home is exactly what the sailors were looking for. One master navigator, Maupiailug, carried this entire system in his memory alone. No charts, no instruments, just decades of pattern recognition passed down from his grandfather, refined voyage after voyage, until his mind functioned like a living GPS. This wasn't magic, and it wasn't superhuman. It was a skill, trained the same way your brain learns a route home after enough repetition, except pushed to a level almost none of us reach anymore, because we stopped needing to. Let's reconstruct a single morning to see how all of this worked together. A hunter wakes before sunrise. He doesn't check a device. He checks the wind on his face and notices it's shifted slightly from the night before. He steps outside and glances at which stars are low on the horizon, confirming which way is east before the sun even rises. As he walks, he registers the slope of the ground beneath his feet, always trending downward toward a stream he crossed the day before. He passes a tree he marked mentally yesterday, gnarled trunk leaning slightly west. Every one of these details gets filed away, not consciously but as part of a constantly updating mental map. Researcher and tracker Louis Liebenberg spent years studying sand hunters in the Kalahari Desert, some of the last people on Earth still practicing this kind of tracking at an expert level. What he found was striking. Skilled trackers weren't just following footprints. They were running a kind of real-time guess in their heads, predicting where an animal was likely headed based on terrain, wind, time of day, and behavior patterns built from a lifetime of observation. Navigation and tracking, it turns out, use almost the exact same mental machinery. By midday, the hunter has covered several miles without hesitation, without backtracking, without a single moment of true uncertainty. He crosses open ground, ducks under low branches he remembers from past trips, and adjusts his path slightly when the wind shifts again, because a shifting wind can carry his scent toward the animal he's tracking. None of this feels like effort to him. It feels like walking through a familiar room in the dark. That's the real difference between his mind and yours on an unfamiliar street. His mental map had decades to build. Ours often never gets the chance to start. Here's the counterintuitive twist. Modern humans aren't worse navigators because we lack ability. We're worse navigators because we outsource the skill entirely. Multiple studies have found that heavy reliance on GPS is linked to reduced activity in the exact part of your brain responsible for building mental maps. Every time you let an app decide your route, your brain quietly declines the workout. Do that for years, and the skill doesn't just go unused, it measurably weakens. And this isn't a slow, ancient decline. It happened inside a single lifetime. Someone born in the 1970s likely grew up folding paper maps, tracking mile markers, memorizing turns by landmark. Someone born in the 2000s may have never navigated a single unfamiliar route without a voice telling them exactly when to turn. Two people, same species, same brain hardware, wildly different levels of the skill your ancestors relied on to survive. It raises an uncomfortable question. If the skill fades this fast without practice, what happens if it disappears from a culture entirely? For Pacific Islanders, that almost happened. By the 20th century, traditional wayfinding had nearly vanished, pushed aside by modern instruments. It survived only because a handful of elders, Maupiailug among them, were willing to teach it again before it was lost for good. What took thousands of years to refine could have ended in a single generation of disuse. Your ancestors never had that option. Every trip was practice. Every landmark mattered. Every mistake got corrected the hard way and remembered permanently, because getting lost could mean starvation, exposure, or worse. The stakes forced the skill to stay sharp. Think about the last time you actually paid attention to which way you'd come from, without your phone confirming it for you. For most of us, the honest answer is, it's been a while. You don't need to cross the Pacific with nothing but wave patterns to reconnect with this. Next time you're outside, try noticing the sun's position before you check the time. Try remembering a turn instead of glancing at a screen. Try walking one familiar route without your phone in your hand at all, just to see how much of it you actually know. That instinct your ancestors relied on for 300,000 years hasn't disappeared. It's not gone, it's just quiet, buried under years of outsourced attention, waiting for a reason to switch back on. You step outside, no signal bars, no blue dot on a screen. And for the first time in a long time, that isn't panic, it's just Tuesday.